Previously on Comic Book Chronicles.
Wow. The Last Mermaid #1 is good. Like, really good. Beautiful, even. I don't mean to sound offensively surprised when I say that, it's just that I had never heard of our author and illustrator Derek Kirk Kim coming into this issue, so I really had no idea what to expect. So imagine my surprise when the issue opened in what is essentially a desert wasteland, and the only identifiable landmark is the remains of the Golden Gate Bridge. Our main character is the titular Last Mermaid, who's sitting in a water tank on a robot that she's piloting around the desert, looking for fresh water. She's a mermaid, so naturally she needs water. I wasn't surprised at all to learn that Derek Kirk Kim's background is mostly in animation. Because as I was flipping through this issue, I couldn't help but think, this reminds me a lot of a Pixar movie, in the sense that we have a really basic, simple story combined with some really stunning visuals. Like some of the most amazing visuals I've seen in a comic book so far this year. The colors in this issue are absolutely stunning in an unexpected sort of way, in the sense that we're expecting a story called The Last Mermaid to take place underwater, so I was expecting lots of blues and bluish greens, etc., but instead we've got a lot of oranges and yellows, and we've got a desert setting, which we couldn't necessarily have anticipated. We also meet the character of Lottie in this issue, who is our main character's underwater, alienish type sidekick. I don't know exactly what Lottie is, but I'm looking forward to seeing more in the future. The Last Mermaid #1 really caught me off guard in the best way possible. I meant it when I said that this is a beautiful issue. And if you haven't purchased it yet, I highly recommend it. This book deserves to be seen. Our guest today is an Eisner and Harvey Award-winning creator of comics, and suddenly I feel like I should have worn a tie. Issues 1 through 3 of his current project, The Last Mermaid, are on sale now. He's Derek Kirk Kim, ladies and gentlemen. Derek, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. Now, you know what? True story here. You and I have met briefly before, because at the time of this recording, we're less than a week removed from C2E2, and now I know the highlight of C2E2 for you was your brief interaction with me. But
100%.
I mean, other than that, did you have a good time?
Oh yes, and yeah, it actually was really great to meet you. And I've seen your reviews of the Last Mermaid, so it was really thrilling, which I really appreciated. And it's thrilling to meet you in person, and you were just as nice in person.
Wow. Do you get out to cons that often? Is that was it rare for you to at least get to Chicago?
Oh yeah, I mean, C2E2, this was my first time, so
okay.
I'd been to Chicago a couple times just as a tourist, but I'd never been there for a convention, so it was super cool. And it was one of my best con experiences I've ever had. I met so many nice people. So many people came by, and I sold out of everything that I brought by Sunday morning. So it was one of the best.
Yeah,
yeah, it was one of the best selling cons I've ever been to as well. So yeah, nothing to say but positive stuff about the show, and I really hope I can do it again next year. They'll have me again next year.
Excellent. Well, okay, what we're here to talk about today is The Last Mermaid, which you've generally provided some visual aids for us in the background there. So this has been a while in development for you, The Last Mermaid. It dates back to 2014, and then I guess it involves the pandemic. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. I was working in animation during right before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic struck, my parents had some health issues, so I had to come back to my hometown and take care of my parents. So
Where's your
like
hometown?
I'm sorry, what?
Where is your hometown? Apologies.
It's Pacifica, California, which is
Okay, cool.
about 15-20 minutes south of San Francisco. It's a beach town. That's
Gotcha.
where I grew up. Yeah, beautiful place. Yeah, so I came, so I kind of had to like move back to Pacifica in like a rush, like in a week. I had to like, I remember I just like gave away like most of my stuff on the street. Like I just put on like
Wow.
Craigslist, like come pick up all this stuff, like if you want it. And it was like filming equipment, a lot of it. And I couldn't take it, so I didn't have enough space. I just had a van, like my parents, Toyota Sienna or whatever, and that's all I had space for. And so people even wrote me like, "Are you okay?" Like people were worried that I might be like suicidal or something. Which is really funny.
It sounds like you had to uproot your life.
Yeah. I basically had to uproot my life, and I'm sure during the pandemic, a lot of people had stuff like that going on. So I'm probably not alone in that story. But so then anyway, I moved back to Pacific. I kind of was out of the animation world, and then I started to work. I had to do something. So that's when I came up with the Last Mermaid. I mean, I had the story cooking in my head, but it was the perfect time to like actually start doing it. So around taking care of my parents, I would just do it any free time I had. And then originally, because I just come off from animation, I was so used to storyboarding. I did it as an animatic, which is like storyboards put in sequence with music and sound. And so I did that for a few videos online just for fun. And then after a while, I decided, I realized I had to make some money somehow. So I decided to go back to my first love, comics, and then kind of transfer all the work I'd done so far for the animatics into a comic. And that's actually how I ended up with that odd size, because of the comic, which let me see if I can show you guys. So unlike normal comics, by the way, what's that?
If you don't have one, I have one. I was going to bring this up.
Oh, okay, awesome. That's right. So actually, this is also the first time I'm going to be showing the third issue. I just got it yesterday, in the mail. This comes out next week. It's the third issue.
Yes.
Super excited. Anyway, so you'll see that it's kind of square. And the reason is because the format of the panels were in the like a storyboarding format, which is like your screen, 16:9, I believe it's called. And that format, when I shrink it down and to make it into a grid, like an 8-panel grid on a comics page, the panels became way too small. So I had to widen it to, unless I took every single panel I had done up to that point and then reformat it to make it fit into a comic. It was just too much work, way too much work. And I'd rather use that time. I'm sorry, what?
You have to redo a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. So it was going to be a lot of time wasted when I could have used that time to either draw or write the comic. So I decided just widen the comic. It was okay with Image, and they were, thankfully. And that's how I ended up with the odd square format.
Now, what is The Last Mermaid about? Go walk us, give us the elevator pitch if you got one.
Yeah. I've gotten a little better at it now that I've been to a bunch of conventions and I had to tell people on it, people walking by that didn't know about it. But basically, it's about a mermaid trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, desert wasteland, and where there's basically no water. And, everyone needs water, but it's even worse for a mer person because she needs it just to breathe. Unlike just a mermaid, she doesn't breathe through her lungs. She breathes through these gills on her neck. And so she needs water to breathe. So in the beginning of the first issue, her Havoc, her mech that she rides in, which is the only way she can survive. It's a mech that has water inside. And but the water needs to be replenished, just like the fish tank in your at home.
Right.
And so at the beginning of the story, it's about to turn so toxic that you can't breathe it anymore. She's about to die.
It's about 90-some% toxicity when we open the issue.
Exactly. So she's in really dire straits. And there's a bigger mission as to why she's risking her life like this, but which you'll find out in the next couple of issues.
I was gonna say there's a lot we don't know about our main character here. And one of those things is her name. Now she's a little bit like Baby Yoda in the sense that the child from the Mandalorian, and that we're kind of we have to call her something, so we call her the Last Mermaid. Why the decision for no name? I mean, I guess you could have given us her name, but there's no real reason for her to introduce herself to anyone. I mean, why make her unnamed at this point?
Well, you'll see later when she does reveal her name that the
Okay.
reason that she doesn't reveal her name, like you said, it's because there's no story function for it at this moment. But also, if she's in a world where every day of her life something or someone is trying to kill her. So she's had no trust in anyone, and her revealing her name means that she really trusts you, and she's not going to give out her name unless she trusts you. So
Okay.
if she does reveal her name to somebody in the story, it means that there's a level of trust there that wasn't there before. And so I wanted the audience to kind of find her name the same way somebody in that world would find her name, find out about her name. So that was the basic idea.
Function.
Yes. And there was one other thing when I was mentioning the premise of the story. There is this stranger that's following her, but she doesn't realize.
We've never seen, yeah.
Yeah, so he makes a brief appearance in the first issue, and he's following her, but she doesn't know that he's following her, or it, or she, or he, and or they. So that's another thing you'll discover in the next couple of issues.
Well, she's not alone either. Now, this is the part where I learned something from this book. She's got a sidekick named Lottie. Okay.
That's right.
And Lottie is an axolotl. Am I right there?
So,
he's an am I pronouncing that right?
Well, the common American way to say it is axolotl, but
axolotl. Okay.
Yeah, I think. But the actual it's actually it originates from Mexico. So you know how like in Spanish they don't pronounce the X like we do. It's like a H sound or something. So it is pronounced differently traditionally. But I'm not even going to attempt to do that because I don't speak Spanish and I'm just going to sound really dumb. So, but there is a different.
I thought what we were looking at in issue 1, and I think I don't know if I mentioned this in the first review I did. I thought we were looking at an alien.
Right.
That's how unfamiliar that I was. So are you an axolotl enthusiast? Why make Lottie an axolotl?
Well, I discovered axolotls maybe 5 years ago, just online, randomly. I don't even remember exactly how I stumbled upon it, but I just remember thinking this animal is like a living, smiling emoji, and it just makes you happy just looking at it. It's constantly smiling. And in such a dark world of The Last Mermaid, I thought there should be a little beacon of hope, a little beacon of light, and I think Lottie provides that. And I've also just been a big fan of stories with little cute sidekicks, I guess, like for example, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Aang has Momo, the little flying monkey, and then the other one that's even more of an influence for me is Nausicaa, Nausicaa, the Hayao Miyazaki film, and she has a little like squirrel-like creature, and I think not only does it provide some humor and sort of lightness to the story, I think it provides Isla with someone to talk to, so it provides a story function as well.
Definitely, and one of the things that I love about Lottie is that she's every bit they're every bit as yeah, thank you. They're every bit as expressive as our Last Mermaid character is, especially once we get, into the story. There's, I think I said, fantastic expressions on both these characters.
Right. Thank you so much. And it's kind of amazing that you can get so much out of just literally 2 dots and a smile. And I kind of learned that actually working on Adventure Time, because I was a character designer on Adventure Time, and literally that's all they have in every face on Adventure Time. But you can get so much emotion and humor out of just that,
Naturally, yeah. So, okay, getting back to the dimensions of the book. Now, we're a high budget program here, so I have visual aids. Okay, so we've got your standard Last Mermaid issue here, okay, and then we have your standard comic book. So there's a little bit of overlap there, but it's different. I mean, are there challenges that come with making a comic book with different dimensions like that, or was it just a matter of adapting to like you said, the way you approach the book creatively.
Yeah, it is a bit challenging, I guess, marketing wise, or maybe for store owners, which I do feel bad for, because I know a lot of comic book stores have shelves that have barricades
Right.
that between each issue, right, and they're probably set to that size, so that's probably
Mhm.
really annoying for them, which I feel bad about. But it does fit in the magazine bag and board, and
Okay.
it'll fit on a magazine shelf. It's just a little shorter than a magazine shelf, so that's been the biggest challenge. The creatively though, it actually I think opened up the world a little bit. At least from the feedback that I've gotten, people feel like it has more of like a cinematic or like wide scope sort of feel. Because
I was going to say it feels like you're watching a movie in IMAX.
yeah, that's right. That's right. You said that, which is a great way to say it. And like for example, in this first issue, when there's a 2-page spread, this ratio is actually the ratio of the normal panel, but just blown up.
Right.
So it actually fits. It actually works really well in that this ratio, when blown up a little bit, fits into this half page. So then I can have two half page panels, or if I blow it up to this full width, then I can have a massive cinematic kind of shot. And I think because of that, I kind of stumbled upon that accidentally, just making this format. And it worked out really well, which means I can basically work in one ratio the entire time. There are a few places where, if I do if I split the bottom half into two panels, then it'll turn more vertical. But it's pretty infrequent. Most of the time, I'm just working on that one size, and it's actually really great for me because coming from film and animation, I'm used to that. I can no longer think in any other size because I'm so used to storyboarding in that size. So for me, it's like I don't even have to think of the formatting at all. It's just like all I'm concentrating on is on the story. So it really streamlines my thinking when I used to make traditional comics. I was always kind of stumbling on how to actually separate the pages, which is an amazing art form in itself. So I have so much respect for comic book artists that can do that so naturally, because I can't. I think more just visually, without any constraints of the page layout. You know what I mean? So because of that, it's really freaked me up.
Now, diving into your animation background a little bit, because you mentioned you worked on Adventure Time, people's ears are going to perk up. Can you tell us a little bit about your animation background? And I guess, how does an animation background flow into the creation of a comic book? How do they complement one another?
Yeah, I think animation in particular is very conducive to comics. They're both visual mediums, and basically when you're doing a comic, it's sort of like you're picking the key frames within a motion, right? So like animation, you have this hand going across the screen, you would just draw all those hands. But in a comic, you have to pick, is this the best part? Is this the best part? So if you're used to coming from drawing everything, it's much easier, I think, to know exactly where the best position is to pick to determine a comic. But the great thing about comics is in animation, or in film, the screen is locked. You can't do stuff like what I was just showing, an impact of this to this. You just can't get in a movie. I guess you could in an animation. You could shrink down the screen and then go to the full screen later, but that'd be really strange, I think, and jarring for people. But in comics, it's I guess it's kind of like the equivalent of a zoom in or a zoom out or something in a film. But in that page turn, I think it's even more impactful because you're actively part of the reveal. You know what I mean? So
definitely.
So it does translate, but it's in a different mechanical way, I guess. The one challenge coming from film to comics, though, I have to say, is sound. Because sound plays such a huge role in the film and animation. And in the comics, you have no sound. So I'm always trying to picking. I spent a lot of time just picking the onomatopoeias, the sound effects, like
Yeah.
what would sound correct without being too goofy or too off, or it's a real skill
It's
and
something you got to think about.
totally, and it's something you don't have to think about at all in film and animation. But when you get to comics, you really do have to think about that. But having been a director too, like you do actually pick the sounds. Like when I'm in the editing room with the editor, we come up with we have like a library of sounds, like boing boing boing, and then you have to pick which one. And going through that process, I think actually does help me write the onomatopoeias, because I've had such a wide variety of sounds I could have used during those directing times. So
you got a lot of different experiences that work in your favor then.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, I mean, animation, I've never worked in animation, but I mean, I would imagine it's a very collaborative process. I mean, you're working with a lot of different people. It's a big tag team effort.
Mm-hmm.
You're the writer and the illustrator on this book. Now, is that I don't want to say is it a lonely process, but I mean, you're primarily relying on yourself creatively. I mean, is that challenging? Is that different? Is that off-putting? What's that like for you?
Yeah, it is definitely a lonely process. When I was younger, it was much harder, because when you're younger, you're more hyperactive. You want to be out with people and partying and all that stuff. So when I was younger, I feel like it was kind of harder to just kind of sit still for hours and hours at a time. But now that I'm older, I actually kind of like it. It's kind of a meditative. And maybe it's because I went through animation for 10 years where I was collaborating with people every single day, which I loved. It's great. But after all that time, I do appreciate the other side now, where I get to just concentrate and just not have to explain my vision to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if you're the director and you're working with a storyboard artist, you have to kind of try to convey to the storyboard artist kind of like what you're thinking, right?
Right.
So, but with my own comics, I can just eliminate that stage. Like I can just go directly from my brain to the paper. So, in that sense, it's really cool. But on the flip side, that storyboard artist might come up with something you couldn't have thought of. So a lot of times they'll do something better than what you're thinking. So you lose that side of it. Right now I'm working on another book with another artist named Jacob Perez, and he's drawing the comic, and I'm coming upon that all the time where he draws it way better than I could have ever conceived. So so that's the yin and yang of both processes. They both have their pluses and minuses. That said, right now I don't mind the loneliness. I don't mind the solitude right now working on Last Mermaid, because I'm enjoying it so much, and the reaction so far has been really positive. So it's really. I was gonna say,
and clearly it's working for you. I mean, but based on what we've seen so far.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Appreciate that.
So, okay, the machine that our Last Mermaid character rides around in, the Havoc machine, is it called?
It's called the Havoc. Yep, yes. The abbreviation stands for Hybrid Aquatic Vehicular Chamber, which I love nerding out with stuff like that. Well, unfortunately, it looks a lot like HVAC, which I didn't really think about when I first.
A little bit.
Yeah. If you read it real quick, you might think it's HVAC, but it's not. It's Havoc. Yeah.
So in the supplemental material for issues 1 and 2, we see kind of the evolution of we see in issue 1, I think, a sketch from, I don't know if it was 2014, but I mean it started out very rudimentary looking, at least to me, and then it got much more technologically advanced. I mean, did you develop this over the years? I mean, what was that development process like?
Yeah, I think the reason it changed so much was because originally it was supposed to be a pitch for a kids cartoon. So while I was working in animation, I pitched it to like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney, but they, especially at that time, they only did like kids shows. They didn't have like Love, Death, and Robots at that time, stuff like that. It's purely kids, and you couldn't really pitch anything outside of kids shows. So I purposely drew it sort of cartoony. And to show the people here who haven't read the comic yet. So it started out she started out like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this more like crab-like sort of device. But I think at that time I was drawing inspiration more from like Hayao Miyazaki, who's one of my biggest influences. And if you ever seen this TV show he did before he did the films, it's called Conan the Future Boy.
Okay.
Spelled exactly like Conan the Barbarian, but it's totally different. And it's about a boy in a post-apocalyptic world. And it's actually kind of the flip of The Last Mermaid, in that the whole world is covered in water, basically.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's only these little islands left. The whole world is like in water, but it's a really, really cool animated show. It's about 24 episodes. And
Conan the Future Boy.
Conan the Future Boy. I highly, highly recommend it. And if you'll permit me to pop out for a second.
Oh, go for it.
One of the only few figures I have is this Conan the Future Boy figure, because I love that show so much. This is
action figure cameo.
What's that?
Action figure cameo.
That's right. And yeah, you can see how Miyazaki it is. And as you can see, he's super strong. He's a little boy, but he's like super strong. He lifts boulders and stuff. But in that show, there's a robot. There's a guy that drives a robot, and it's got cranks and stuff. And it's like very kind of archaic looking technology, but it's like a mech. And and it's basically just like legs and arms, and then he's like kind of in the middle. And I think I was kind of channeling that more than anything else in that original version. But once I kind of merged that idea with like Mad Max, something post-apocalyptic that I wanted, something more serious, I didn't think that kind of cartoony style lend itself very well to that. Yeah, to that kind of.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. So once I made it more adult, I figured the mech should look more realistic, like a real working machine. So that's how I kind of went from that to this. And during that process, I just went through like a million different designs. And it was one of the hardest parts about The Last Mermaid, was just coming up with the mech. It was so hard.
Really?
Especially because I never worked on a show with a mech before. I grew up loving Transformers. I love Transform Z, all that stuff, but I never tried drawing it really, So so it was trickier than I thought, and it took me a really long time to to kind of figure out the Havoc. Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating to look at the evolution of where it began versus where it ended up. Now, on the subject of where things are going to end up, so as we're recording, the third issue comes out, I believe, next week.
Yes.
And so, what can readers expect going forward? I mean, from what you can tell us, so what's next for The Last Mermaid?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, you're going to be seeing more of this guy. The mysterious character on the first issue, he makes his big appearance here in the third issue. And other than that, I can't really say more about him. But I'm really curious to see what people will think of his first appearance and what he does in the episode, and what he compels in The Last Mermaid to do. So yeah, I'm really curious about that. And then I just want people to know that the story runs about 25 to 30 issues. So what you've seen so far is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, I haven't even gotten
I wanted to ask you how much mileage you had in you, because I was curious, because I want more, obviously, but forgive me, go ahead.
Oh, no. Thank you. I'm glad. So yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I haven't even gotten to the main premise yet, like the reason why she's risking her life being out here in the first place. And it's going to be like a snowball effect. At least that's what I'm going for. So it starts out very small, right? We only see the Last Mermaid, or the mermaid and Lottie. And then slowly, like characters will be added. And by the end, it's I think going to be pretty epic. Hopefully I can get there. The sales will hold and I can get there. But yeah, you'll discover why the world is the way it is. You'll discover why she's called the Last Mermaid. You'll see why there are no others like her. You'll find out how integral this character is that I'm showing in the third issue is to the story. He's very integral. And there's actually the first 6 issues, which will be collected into a trade, it just gives you a hint of another central character. Like, we haven't even seen the main full cast yet. There is another character that's a real central character that hasn't come out yet. that won't appear until the 7th issue, which I'm really, really excited to get to. But yeah, so that's a taste of what people can look forward to. A lot of violence, a lot of action, a lot
of violence. Okay.
A lot of emotion, a lot of heart-wrenching scenes, even more than what's been shown so far. I can't wait to reveal. I will say this. I don't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead.
Oh, I will just say that I am trying to do something that hasn't been done before in the post-apocalyptic genre. So even though it has a lot of the familiar tropes, I think a lot of the details will be things people haven't seen before. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Excellent. Well, no, I mean, obviously you're going to cons, you're out there. I mean, fan reaction, positive?
Yes, so far it's been very positive. The only negative, I did get a couple negative from the format. People weren't a fan of the format, and I think people that really like the traditional like comic book, kind of not only the format but the art style. I think it's a little bit of a barrier for them. My book, because it's a little bit more painterly than like a typical pen and ink sort of flat color kind of comic. I have a little bit, not the majority has been positive, but I did get a little pushback on that. But majority wise, it's been really, really positive, and I'm just so thankful, because before I went into animation, one of the reasons I went into animation is my comics weren't selling so well before I went into animation. Mm-hmm. So coming off of a few projects that didn't do so well or wasn't really talked about much, I'm so grateful that people actually seem to be excited about this one, and I'm just so grateful and thankful that people seem to be into it.
I'll tell you what, Derek, I got no reason to blow smoke your way unless you want to pay my mortgage. But I mean, the different format and the different style, I think, are two of the book's best attributes, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, they really set it apart from a lot of the other stuff you see on the stand. Now, that's just my opinion, but it is the correct one. So that's.
I hope that's true.
Is there anything else that you would like to add, sir?
Yeah, so it'll be coming out monthly, The Last Mermaid, until the 6th issue. I take a break and then add up more pages so that we can go monthly again, 7 to 12, and so on and so forth until we reach the end. And then I also have another project coming out called Royals next year in April, and it's Royals, and it's a crime caper, and it's drawn by this artist named Jacob Perez, who actually works on the Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show, the new show that's based on the new
upcoming one.
Yeah, and this is his first comic, but he's a fantastic artist, and you would never know it was his first comic because he's so good. And super excited about it. It's about two twin brothers who are telepathically connected, and they use this ability to con poker games. And then in the beginning of the story, they get caught, and what they don't realize is that this poker game is run by this underground mob in Seoul, Korea, which is where the game is taking place. And and then the poop hits the fan, and it's really like I just like to say like if you've always wanted a mashup of what is it called, Baby Driver, Rounders, and a Jackie Chan film, like. This is the book for you.
We've got The Last Mermaid, which is on sale now, and then we've got Royals with say the artist name one more time.
Jacob Perez.
With Jacob Perez coming next spring.
That's right.
Beautiful. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm loving The Last Mermaid. I'm so happy to hear that you've got so much more mileage left in you, so much more gas left in the tank. And I'm looking forward to seeing more, sir. Derek Kirk Kim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think.